The room was quiet, save for the soft ticking of an old clock on the wall. Detective Maria Hayes sat across from her suspect, Robert King, a middle-aged man whose life had been shattered by tragedy. His wife, Emily, had been found dead in their home 2 days earlier, an apparent victim of foul play. Robert was pale, his hands trembling slightly as he clutched the edge of his chair. His eyes darted nervously between the detective and the small window behind her. The clock continued its relentless ticking. "Tell me everything that happened, Mr. King," Maria said, her voice calm but firm. "Start from the beginning." Robert took a deep breath and began. "It was a normal evening, Detective. I had just finished work and came home around 6. Emily was already in the kitchen, making dinner. We had a quiet meal, talked about our day. It was just like any other night." Maria nodded, keeping her expression neutral. "And then what happened?" Robert hesitated, swallowing hard. "After dinner, we were sitting in the living room. We started arguing, but it wasn't anything serious. Just a little disagreement. She got upset. Went upstairs to the bedroom. I tried to apologize, but she told me to leave her alone. I didn't want to push it, so I went to bed early." "Alone?" Maria asked, her eyebrow raising. "Yes," Robert replied, his voice strained. "I was alone." Emily was in the bedroom. Maria jotted something down in her notebook, then looked back at him. "So, you went to bed, and then what?" Robert took a long pause. "I woke up around 2 a.m. to a loud noise. It sounded like a crash. I rushed upstairs and found Emily on the floor. She was bleeding." His voice faltered. "I called 911 immediately." "And when the paramedics arrived?" Maria asked. "They said she was already gone," Robert whispered. "She was dead before I even touched her." Maria leaned forward, her eyes piercing. "You didn't hear anything unusual before the crash? No signs of a struggle?" Robert shook his head, numbered just the crash. "It was like she just fell." Maria studied him for a moment, then set down her pen. "Mr. King, I've gone over the evidence. There's something strange about your story." Robert's face drained of color. "What do you mean?" "The thing is, Mr. King," Maria said slowly, "the autopsy report shows that Emily died from a blunt force trauma to the head. She wasn't just found lying on the floor, she was struck. The blood spatter indicates a violent attack. And there's something else. You were holding a glass of whiskey when the paramedics arrived, but the glass was clean. No fingerprints." Robert's breath hitched. I didn't... And one more thing," Maria continued, cutting him off. "You told me you went to bed early, but we found a freshly disturbed footprint leading into your bedroom. It was a small boot print. Not your size." Robert's eyes widened. "I don't understand." "You didn't kill your wife, Mr. King," Maria said. "But you do know who did." Robert stared at her, his face frozen in shock. What are you talking about?" Maria leaned in, her voice low. "Your wife didn't die from a fall. She was murdered by someone close to you, someone she trusted. And you didn't even realize it." Robert stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You're wrong. I don't know who—" "You do," Maria interrupted, her gaze never leaving him. "It was your daughter. She came to visit that night, didn't she?" Robert faltered. "My daughter? She's been in the hospital for the past month," Maria smiled faintly. "Not your biological daughter, Emily's daughter, her daughter from her first marriage." Robert's face crumbled, his shoulders shaking. "I didn't want to believe it," he whispered. "I didn't want to believe she could do something like that." Maria stood up, pulling her coat on. "Your wife's daughter wasn't just angry with her mother for some trivial reason. She was angry because her mother had changed the will, disinheriting her. And the night Emily died, she had planned to confront her about it. She paused at the door, turning back. That footprint in your bedroom? It was hers. Robert collapsed into the chair, his head in his hands. I should have known, he muttered. I should have known.